Perfect.
All right, cool.
All right. So we're doing this to Zoo.
This is a bit of a messy.
It's been quite the trip.
Oh, hello, Brian.
Don't-
Thank you for.
Yes.
Yeah. All right.
No, speaking of if you're going to play with their saying. Okay, yeah. Well,
Oh, yeah, you can hear me talk right now, so I guess you don't really need to put there. Ah, there, I got it. But
let me see your one.
I don't know.
I guess we put out like a Google Drive.
Hello, William. Is my volume all right? Can you hear me okay? Am I too quiet, too loud? Yep, cool. Okay, thank you. All right, I guess I'll get started. Maybe. All right, well, hello, I'm Kath, and I really like 2D animation. Well, specifically hand-drawn 2D animation. So that's what I'll be talking about, like mainly. But yeah, so we do have some stuff to cover. We're first gonna talk about some like common animation terms, and then we'll go to the bulk of the presentation, which is the 12 principles of animation. And then I will do there's a quick little like demo of me animating a bouncing ball, just to like put stuff into action. And then some extra fun stuff like smears, impact frames, some tips that hopefully will be helpful. And then also I have a bunch of resources that you can go through and look afterwards if you would like. So first thing, a lot of you probably have this question, which is, do you need to know how to draw the anime? Yes, kind of. But like I said, this is for like at hand drawn to the animation. I'm not really talking about like skeletal rigging type of 2D animation. For those, maybe you really have to draw. But for hand drawn, you do need to know a little bit. But I think that's not the most important part of creating a good animation. Most important part for me, I think, is having a good understanding of motion and how to portray motion. So like, have you guys seen those stickman animations on YouTube where they just fight each other? Like, those are pretty good, right? But they're just stickmen, and stickmen are relatively speaking pretty easy to draw, right? It's just a circle and 5 lines. So, sorry, I think you can it's possible to have like really good, beautiful art style and have bad animation. But on the flip side, you can also have like ugly art style and have incredible animation, right? So if you have an understanding of like how things move and you have the skill to, I guess, show that, then you're good. You don't really need to care about like, oh, does this look pretty, quote unquote. But yeah, but like that understanding how emotion works, it's still a skill. And I think a good place to start learning that is understanding the 12 principles, which we'll get to in a second. But before that, here are some terms that I think it's good to know. Keyframes are just a frame you make in your animation software. Like every time you create a frame, that's a keyframe. And then key poses are the most important frames in your animation. Like, so like, for example, for a bouncing ball, your key poses will probably be like the first keyframe, the ball's on the ground. Next key pose is the one highest up in the air, and then back down, that's another key pose. I tend to use keyframes and key poses interchangeably. I don't know if that's like right or whatever, but that's just how I talk when I talk about this. So usually when I say keyframes, I mean key poses, just in case I do that later on in the presentation. And then in-betweens are frames between in-betweens are frames between the 2 key poses. And then tweening is interpolating between keyframes or key poses rather. A lot of animation softwares will do that for you. So like if you create a frame and then another frame, like 2 or 3 frames after or whatever, the software will like interpolate whatever you drew. Or you could do it manually by drawing the in-betweens. That's also free. And then animating on 2s or 3s or 4s and so on. That's essentially like the spacing between each new frame you create. So like for animating on 2s, for example, that just means like you create a new frame for every other frame. I think actually using this to show is a lot easier to make more sense. So here's like a screenshot of me animating a bouncing ball in Krita, which is a great art program that also you can animate in. So key poses, as I said, are like the frames where the ball is at the highest point and the lowest point. Just to like, so that you know where the ball should be going while you animate. And then the in-betweens are the frames that are in between those key poses. And then keyframes are just every single frame that I made, like each of these blue thingies is a keyframe. And for this, I'm animating in 2s. So you see that I have a keyframe every other frame and not every frame, if that makes sense. Okay, so now let's talk about the principles. There are 12 of them. For the sake of time, and also mostly because of time, I won't be talking about all 12. These 4 I will not be talking about. I think in the context of games specifically, they're not as important, but they definitely are important. And I highly encourage if you want to learn animation and be good at animating, definitely go and learn all 12. But just for today, I won't be talking about these 4. So yeah, we'll start with squash and stretch. Excuse me, that's just the deformation along an axis. So like, you know, if you have a ball, actually, I have an example. Does it show right? It's slowed down just so you can see it better. But like you see, while the ball is flying through the air, it's like, I guess, stretched. And then when it hits the wall, it's, you know, it's like squashed down and then it bounces back. That's just kind of a way to show, I don't know, just way to show like, you know, when it's stretched, it's flying through the air. And then when you hit something, there's an impact, so you get squashed down. But okay, wait. There was another example. Yeah, this one. This is from a game called Have a Nice Death. Oh, this is so slow. But you can see like the burger, like while it's prepping to jump into the air, it squashes down, and it squashes again when it lands. Just yeah. But one thing to keep in mind when you're doing squash and stretching is to keep the volume consistent. What do I mean by that? So like for the ball, back to the ball, for example, however much you stretch the ball, you should also squash it. Because then if you just stretch and like, I guess like the height of the ball is still the same, it'll just look like you just made the ball bigger. And that's not really what you were trying to go for. So yeah, however much you squash, you should also stretch, if that makes sense. And then moving on to anticipation. This is basically showing how what's about to happen, like you're signaling or telegraphing what motion is about to happen. So like this here is a character from Skullgirls. You can see that like puts her arm up, getting ready to swing down, like arm holding the arm up is the anticipation and showing that she's about to swing. And then another example, this is also from Have a Nice Death. This was nice. They have 3 like attacks. The first one is a punch where he like pulls back his hand so you know he's about to throw a punch, and then the next one, the uppercut, same thing. And then finally the downward swing with both hands. There's a lot of anticipation there. And anticipation is great because it it shows first off, it shows that it telegraphs like what's about to happen, and then but it also helps add some weight to the action. So like you can see that for like the have a nice death one, there's some weight to the swings, right? But if you have like too much anticipation, it will slow down the animation, and you throw off like the rhythm of what's going on. If you have too little, then there's no weight to motion. Like if I just stand still, right? This way, nope, this way. If I just stand still and then it's suddenly punch, that doesn't seem very like powerful, right? I'll have to like if I do this and then throw a punch, that looks a lot more powerful. So yeah, that's just something to keep in mind. And then next we have straight ahead and post to pose. So these two are essentially like two different animating methods. Straight ahead is essentially continuously animating like as you go, you're creating the keyframe as you go. So you start with the first one, immediately go to the second frame, and then so on. This way of animating, I think it's pretty good for a lot of the effects animations, just because like for a lot of them, like fire, sparks, smoke, or lightning, for example, there's a lot of like randomness to those. So like it's not really like rigid or anything, so you can kind of have fun with it and just oh maybe I could the next frame I'll go this way and so on. Here's pressing the wrong button. Here is an example, kind of. I animated like some lightning going through some words. Like this one I did using straight ahead. So I just animate as I go essentially. And then post to pose is you animate the key poses first, and then you go back and fill in the frames in between those key poses. This is usually good for more like complex animations, or like it's also good for beginners. Beginners usually you would start with animating with post to pose, just so you make sure that positions of whatever you're animating stays consistent and correct, I guess. But yeah, like I keep pressing the wrong button, I'm sorry. For example, like a walk animation. This is a pretty scuffed one that I made really quickly, but the key pose would probably be like with the left leg out and then right leg out, or like and then like in between where like both legs are kind of together, right? When you're crossing. And then once you have those key poses down, then you can go back and fill in the in-betweens. Right. And then next we have follow through and overlapping action. Follow through is kind of like the opposite of anticipation. So like what happens after the motion. So for example, I'm using the same GIF here from previous because, well, oh yeah, this is a good point that like animations usually use a combination of all these principles. You don't really just use one. So this one here, follow through would be like after the swing, you can see her hair still kind of flows down. That's a follow through. And then overlapping action is just different things move at different speeds, essentially. For this example, this is a character from Indivisible. You can see there's a lot going on, like her hair is moving, her hands are also curling back, her clothes, leg also shifts a little bit. There's a lot of components to this animation, and they all move at different speeds and direction and so on. It just makes it more interesting, and also makes the animation look more fluid and natural. So yeah, it's good to have overlapping action, especially if you have multiple components. If you just have like a ball, there's nothing else going on, that's fine. But if you have more like several things in your animation, it's good to use overlapping action. All right, next we have slow in and slow out, or ease in and ease out. this is really just physics inertia, right? I think the best example is like driving a car. You start at a green light, you start slow and then you speed up, right? You don't immediately go like 0 to 60 in like 0.5 seconds. But then when you come to a red light, you have to stop. You don't just immediately go from 60 to 0 in 0.5 seconds, right? You'll slow down. But that's essentially what this principle is about, acceleration, deceleration. And to, I guess, simulate that, usually you put more frames closer together that'll slow down the animation. Oh no, wrong button again. Okay, so this is from Cuphead. Kind of hard to tell because it's a little laggy, but it starts slow a little bit, and then it speeds up and slams down into the ground. There's probably only like 1 or 2 frames between when it's like up and then on the ground. So that's the speed. And then another one is the ball again. After it hits the wall and bounces back, it like slows down because it like lost the. Yeah, I don't know if it's easy to see, but like, yeah. There's no like exact number. It kind of depends. So it's hard to. Yeah, it pretty much, yeah. So like, actually, if I go back to this here, I mean, this is all consistent in frames. If slow in, if you want to do slow in, so it then like first, okay, so probably like the first 2 or 3 frames here together, and then you don't have any frames here, or like it's more spaced out in the middle when you're speeding up. And then same for slow in, as you get closer to the end of your animation, you have more frames closer together, if that makes sense. Okay, cool. All right. You have a question? Mhm. Yeah.
There's like less balls on the pathway.
Yep. Yeah, pretty much. Okay. Like here, okay. So yeah, so that just adds more, makes the movement look more dynamic and natural because physics. And then there is physics, I know. I mean, you don't have to be like a physics genius. It's just, it's just common sense, right? Okay, arcs, also another physics. A lot of motion usually follow an arc. So like, when you're walking, your arms swing and the tip of your fingers kind of follow an arc, or like, like a pendulum swinging back and forth, right? This, another one is, I don't know if, oh yeah, this is work, never mind. But you can see like, kind of see like the hair, tip of the hair kind of goes in a little arc, and so does the hands, like they curl. While they curl, it's following like an arc. Another example is this one. This one's probably easy to tell. This is from Blasphemous. You can see like the swing follows like a curve. So like it helps things look more fluid and realistic. And like the arcs or curves don't have to be like a perfect circle curve, or like, yeah, it just can be any kind of curve depending on what you're trying to do. And it can be as long as short as you need. So like for the indivisible character, the hair, the arc is pretty small because it's not moving as much. And then, but then for like the swing, it's a very big swing. So there's like a very big arc that you kind of follow through. All right, next is timing. Timing essentially is just the number of frames between two key poses, or like just how fast the motion is. It's just like when do you pause, when you speed up or slow down, how fast do things move? That's just timing. These two examples, they're from Indivisible. Like the girl, kind of hard to tell because it's so slow. But the girl, it swings pretty fast. The timing, like, it's pretty sped up. But the bottom guy, I think he's called Tiny. I don't quite remember. But his movement is a lot slower, and then there's also a slight pause at the end. So like it adds a bit more weight to it. But yeah, timing usually often ties in with slow in and slow out. So you can see like for the bottom guy, he kind of slows down as he stops, like after he stops. It's just, yeah, motion can be at different speeds throughout the animation. And then I think this is the last one. This is exaggeration. Really, it's just physics, following physics. Being too realistic can be pretty boring, right? And like, obviously, this does depend on your style. If you want to go for a very realistic kind of motion, sure. But I think even for those, having a little bit of exaggeration is still good, because while like in real life, you look in real life, things aren't really like exaggerated per se, and you can but they make sense to you. But if you transfer that to a screen, sometimes it's hard to tell what's happening. So having some exaggeration is also good to show, make it more obvious like what's happening. And it also, like, it's fun to exaggerate. Like, this is again from Cuphead. Like, look at her mouth. It's so cool. You can have a lot of fun with it. Push the limits of like all the other principles. And also like these principles aren't like strict rules. You can always break them. And that's like, it sounds counterintuitive that like you have principles to follow, but then also you can break them. But yeah, it's I guess it's just the creative part of animation, right? At the end of the day, you can do whatever you want, really. All right, I think that's all of them, all the principles. Are there any questions so far? Wait, I forgot there's a chat. I'm sorry. Okay, there's no questions. All right. So here's a little demo I made of just me showing myself animating a bouncing ball. It's sped up like 7 times, I think. Okay, I can't full screen. All right. But so essentially I did like sketch the frames out beforehand first, which is good to do. Just like plan things out. And I am doing straight ahead animating for this. You can also do pose to pose, and honestly it's better to do pose to pose for animating this. You see here, I was trying to like copy the first frame and use it for the second bounce up, but I just thought it's fine. It's probably faster to just draw it. But you can see like as the ball goes up into the air, they're closer together between frames, even though like the actual keyframes themselves are all in twos. But by positioning them closer together, you can still have the effect of they're slower up there in the air. And then you can see like I also use squash and stretch principle. Like when it lands on the ground, it's going to squash a little bit, and as it's like going up into the air or coming back down, it's faster, so it's going to stretch a little bit. Yeah, that's pretty much it. this is. Oh no. Okay, there we go. Okay, so this is the final result of that. It's not perfect, but it's okay. I mean, I did this in like 10 minutes, I think. So yeah. Excuse me. Great. Now, let's talk about some fun stuff. Smears and multiples. I love drawing smears because they're so fun. You can be pretty creative with smears. The smears and multiples are usually used in fast motion. And like it fills in the it fills in the gaps between two positions. Like if actually, yeah. So like this is an example from Indivisible again. I love the art style for this game. But yeah, so like here are two frames of this guy swinging his weapon down. This is the first frame. The next frame immediately, as it lands, and you see this like giant smear. That's yeah, it's like it fills in the gap of like where or how the source started from the first frame to the end, if that makes sense, right? It's really fun. Like this is enormous, and like this is literally just two frames next to each other. A problem, something that I also like have sometimes is like I go a bit too overboard with smears, because using too much smears can slow down the animation or like make it seem slow instead of what you want to show like fast. So using too much, yeah, don't use too much. It's how do you know you're using too much? Let your animation back. Just stare at it while it's playing and see if it looks right. Okay, this is a multiples from this is what multiples look like. This is from Skullgirls. So multiples are essentially just like you have a multiple of the same thing while you're doing two motions. So like here, you can see like the three arms swinging down. So you have multiple of them, and it's kind of like a smear too. Oh, you have a question? Oh, right. Sorry, I use Krita. That's Krita. It's like a free open source art program. I love it. Yeah, I do recommend using Krita because like it's not far from the functions that like Photoshop have or anything. So yeah. Right. And then this is also another example from Indivisible. This is like kind of a mix of smears and multiples. You kind of see like while it's like swinging the cloth around, there's like multiple sections of it, and all of those are like smeared. And yeah, it's pretty cool. And then impact frames. Okay, this I have put 2 exclamation points because I love this. It's used to show like a strong, very powerful instant, typically impacts. So impact frames, traditionally they are usually just black and white in color, and you know these frames they take up the entire scene usually. If it's like if you want to show like maybe like a character, your play character hitting an enemy with an ultimate move or something. I mean, you can use impact frames that take up the entire scene, definitely, but sometimes that might be a bit too much. So you don't have to do that. But like in the cases of like cutscenes and stuff, I love impact frames in like just like cutscene animations, that type of stuff, because it's so fun. And they usually are just a maximum of 1 or 2 frames. They're very quick. And the whole point of just 2 colors and very short instant is to like show that like flash to show like there's a powerful effect going on. an example I have here. Oh yeah, it also, I mean, I say traditionally black and white because you don't have to really just use black and white. You can use any colors, more than two, whatever you want. You can have a lot of fun with impact frames. I love that. There's no like specific way on how to draw them. Yeah. Oh shoot. Wrong button again. Okay, so this example is from the Hades trailer. You can see like the impact frame. A screenshot here, I think. Yeah. See, this is the impact frame. This is so cool. There's like so a key with like impact frames that it will have like a center point of where the impact is. This the impact hits, and then colors just burst out all around it. And you see this one has like so many different colors going on, and it's so good. I love it. Another one example I have, I think, is one that I made. This is this is an animation I made. It's just a stickman going Super Saiyan. So this doesn't actually involve like a physical impact between two objects, but you can still have an impact frame because it shows, you know, the burst of when the moment he transforms, right? So here, this is one of the impact frames. I made, there's two. I couldn't find I couldn't access the original file for this animation, unfortunately. So I don't have, I actually, wait, this helps. The slowed down helps. You can see the previous frame of this one is just, the colors are inverted. So like the first impact frame, the background's black and the character is white. And then the second one is this one where the colors are inverted and there's some change going on. But yeah, it's so cool. I'm not explaining this too well, but yeah, I love it. You can have a lot of fun with it. Yes.
Like, so that one, like a couple of levels.
Yeah. So that's like my favorite things. In anime, I love anime. I'm wearing an anime shirt right now, but yeah, it's just sometimes this is an anime. Some of them like they go overboard. They will go to more than 2 frames, like 5. They're like 2 full seconds of just impact frame, and it seems crazy, but like in anime, it looks very good. I don't think it'll look as good in video games because time, and speed matters a lot, especially in gameplay. Cutscenes maybe not so much. So if you want to do that in cutscenes, go ahead. But yeah, I have a couple more examples of impact frames I made. So the one on the left is an actual like physical impact of just something hitting the ground and blowing up, and the other one also a physical impact actually. But you can see like they're pretty different, right? But there's, I guess the real key thing of impact frame is that you have a center of where the impact actually hit, I guess happens, and then you have these like power, light, whatever that just expands from there in like a circle around it. I think that's really the key thing about impact frames. And then after that, besides from that, you can do whatever you want with it, and I'm pretty sure it'll look pretty good. Very good. All right, here's some tips that I have. First one, super, super important. Use references. I can't stress this enough. Please use references. Use as many as you can get. You will not like that. It will be very helpful. And if you can't find references, make your own. Like use your phone and record yourself doing whatever action that you're trying to animate. Obviously, this will have some limitations on like, you know, if you can't do a backflip and you want to animate a backflip, you can't really, you have to find an existing reference for that, right? Please don't hurt yourself in this process. But references are definitely an important part of animation. Like even the pros, they always use references. And another thing is watching others work. I think watching the process of how others create the animations is really helpful. I don't know, just understanding how they create the animations, the whole process, it just helps a lot. So like go look up speed paints, speed animations of others, or even go to live streams. That's pretty cool too. More frames in an animation does not always equal it's better. Or like I guess usually if you have more frames, it'll look smoother. But smooth isn't always good. In some cases, like it just doesn't look as natural, weirdly. And also it'll slow things down. Like if you have more frames, typically most likely it's gonna look slower. So yeah, it's sometimes less is better. Okay, and the next, no need to reinvent the wheel. What do I mean by that? So if you are animating a character walking, for example, you draw your first frame of like the entire character, right? The next frame you draw, you don't have to redraw the entire character. You can just copy your first frame into there, erase whatever parts you need to change and draw that. You don't need to use the extra time and energy redrawing something that you already made. This isn't cheating or anything like that. I think this is actually a good use. I get like be more efficient, I guess, with your animating process. It's okay to reuse things that you yourself already made. But yeah, and then mirror your animation often while working. So in most art programs or animating programs, there should be a function where like you can, if you click it, you'll like flip your whole canvas. And the thing why this is helpful is because like while you're drawing or animating, whatever, you're looking at this for a long time. It'll look right. But as soon as you flip it, most likely something's gonna look off. I don't know exactly why this is the case, but it does happen. So for example, like if you, I mean, this is, I guess, not exactly drawing or animating, but I mean, you are drawing while animating. But like if you draw like a face, for example, and your eye, and like you look at the eyes right now, and it seems fine, but as soon as you flip it, suddenly one eye is higher than the other for some reason, right? So I think it's good to use the mirror function as often, very often, like just every like a few minutes or whatever, just flip it real quick and see if it still looks right. Yeah. Lastly, keep in mind transitions between character animations. So if you're making like an idle animation for a character, and then also a walking animation, and then also maybe like an attack, keep in mind the start and ending frames of those, because because you're gonna go, the character's gonna go from idle to walking or to the attack, right? The transition between those two animations are pretty important. So if there's like a very big difference between this, like the start frames and end frames of those, it's gonna look jank. Like it'll look like there's like a skip between the two animations. So I mean, yeah, like Unity, there's like you can blend, but that can only help so much. So you should still keep in mind like the transition between these animations. All right. And then that's it. These are some games that I have like used as examples, and also some other, maybe some others that I think is nice to check out. Obviously, Cuphead, Hollow Knight also Have a Nice Death. It's a pretty cool game that's in early access right now. It's like a 2D roguelike thing. Their VFX, I don't know if the VFX are hand drawn as well, but those look great. So I do highly recommend checking that out too. Skullgirls, Indivisible, also incredible. These are hand drawn fighting games. And then Blasphemous, also pretty good animations, and it's in pixel art style. But yeah, that's all I have. And then hold on, at the end I have a bunch of resources to look at. Oh, I do want to point out the last one, Rubber Ross Gartic Phone animation playlist. This I found so helpful. Gartic Phone, obviously this is not like professional way of animating because it's Gartic Phone. But I just thought like seeing how the artists plan out and draw each frame is pretty cool and pretty helpful. Yes.
So right now. A class on previous. And so one of my questions was that I do like it because I think it's like set up these keyframes, and the idea is that you just like go to the and then you will make it all.
Yeah.
I'd like to know what there's
Yeah. I think for Krita there is also a way that you can that like it'll interpolate between two keyframes that you said. Yeah. Mhm.
not quite the same level of I want to know that
No, you're good. Yeah. 2D rigging, like skeletal rigging stuff, I'm not familiar with that, unfortunately. But those do look very cool and pretty interesting. Because it's very, I think it's very similar to like 3D, except it's just, 2D. But yeah, are there any other questions? Hold on, I forget it. Yes. Mhm. Oh yeah, of course. Hold on, let me go back to it. Oh, this is gonna take a while. Yeah, that's true. I can do that. Oh, computer is very slow. I apologize. Um, why is it not in the? Hold on. There. Okay. So these four are the ones I didn't talk about. So staging, for example, is just how it's just like the layout of your animation. I think that applies more to like level design in games, not exactly like 2D animation. Um, let's see. Solid drawing and appeal is kind of essentially just saying draw good. I mean, it sounds kind of, I don't really like saying that, but yeah, it's essentially what it means really. Secondary action is just any if you have any other objects in the scene, how they move according to the main point of your animation, which I think most of the time in games you really just focus on animating one object and then you just put them together while in your game scene. So yeah. Yes. Yeah, it can be that too. Actually, yeah, yeah. A lot of these kind of so secondary action is pretty similar to overlapping action. Um,
like there.
yeah, but I think I have in resources one link that is pretty helpful. Oh, God. Sorry. Well, it is pretty difficult in a sense just to get it right because it's just there's no like exact way to make attack rates. It's just all about the feel of it, which kind of sucks. But if you get it right, it's so fun and it looks so good. Okay, this is one that talks about principles. And it has like gifts for each of them, which is really nice. So secondary action, yeah, here is usually like supporting action, I guess. So here, like the smallest square or cube rather is the secondary action, and then overlapping. Overlapping is where lost. Wait. Oh yeah, it's right here. Sorry. Okay. So overlapping action is just, it doesn't have to be like a separate object. It can just be a part of the object that you're animating. That's just like, it moves a little bit differently. So like, like the clothing for a character. And it'll usually move throughout the animation, right? Yeah, I think, yeah, that's overlapping. Yeah, I think this link is pretty helpful, even though it's not really for a game specifically, but it's still pretty useful information. Yeah. I only use Krita. I only use Krita. I have been meaning to learn grease pencil and in Blender. But I'm not too sure how grease pencil will work for making, I guess, for example, character animations, because I don't know how you can export those with like PNG background, like transparent background. But I don't know. Yeah, I just use Krita. Krita is my queen, and I love her. But yeah, it is free, exactly, and it does so much for a free program. It's amazing. Highly recommend. Yeah. Any other questions? Favorite game in 2D?
It's raw.
That is hard. Well, this is kind of embarrassing. I don't play that many games. Indivisible. I really like it. I was like looking up 2D games and I found Indivisible. I was like, that's like it's an anime style too, kind of, which is my style that I love, and it's hand drawn and like think that it's amazing, and they are hand drawn. Like I have in the resources tab a couple links to like the lead animator for that game where she's just gonna animate a character. The entire talk is just her animating and her talking about her process while doing it. It's great. But yeah. Yeah. I really love hand drawn animations in games because it takes so much work, but it looks so good.
Like if well, you don't have to modify it. It's like it's talent. Then you never check it out. I'm called the overalls. Beautiful for fighting. But if you have fighting army in your mind. Can say there's a difference between the computer games and the FPS. Look, when you never fight a game, it looks different. Yeah. Yes, it is. Yeah, it is. Look at the freaking N-word and like all that's off. It's not. He's using his fists instead of hands.
All right. Yeah. If there, well, that's it for me. If there are any other questions.
Thank you.
Yeah. Class adjourned. All right. People on Zoom, thank you for coming. And I think I'll end the recording first.